of speech. So what got me to choose this topic is thinking about how Germany is going to be paying a billion, maybe a couple $1 billion for reparations for a genocide they committed between 1904 and 1908. And I began to think, well, why doesn't America do this? Slavery was horrible and it was allowed in America for hundreds of years. Where's the reparations for that? And this quote came to mind that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. And I think that one of the big problems is that we have become silent about things that matter. Today, I will be talking to you about how racism exists. It's a huge problem in America. I'm going to convince you that you need to take action to stop it. So about me, how am I qualified to talk about this topic? Well, other than having eyes and ears, listening to others, and having friends that come from different ethnicities and that have listened to them, I have also talked to my brother Tyler Copeland, who has a master's in education, who wrote his master's thesis on something very similar to what I'm about to talk to today. So why this matters to us is, right, this is the past 4 years we had this guy in the Oval Office, right? This guy's horrible. He really, time and time again, showed his racism. But in 2020, a record number of voters showed out to vote him out, which is awesome, right? But unfortunately, 70 million people still voted for this guy. That means 70 million people in America either didn't know he was racist, which is unlikely, or knew about it and it just didn't bother them enough to not vote for him. So today, I'm going to teach you guys a little bit. I'm going to get you to admit that racism is and has always been a part of our culture. Then we will start to connect the dots from history to today to see how that affects us right now, and explain some strategies to take action when you see racism and convince you that you do need to take them. Right? We talk about racism. It's not a new thing with Trump, right? Our founding fathers were slave owners. Not only were they slave owners, they were notoriously violent slave owners, right? When even the Declaration of Independence, they changed John Locke's life, liberty, and property to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to bar Black people from owning property. And right, even in our Constitution that we use today, there is racism written into it, like the 13th Amendment, for example. Well, when we talk about the 13th Amendment, isn't that the amendment that outlaws slavery? Well, not exactly. Slavery is illegal in the Constitution as punishment for a crime if convicted by a jury of your peers. Right? What this leads to in America is prisoners are paid little to nothing for the services they provide while in prison, which is a lot. Prisons are run by prisoners pretty much. And in 5 states, they are not paid at all for the labor they do. And they do not live for free like many of you do believe. They often rack up huge amounts of debt due to predatory pricing on phone calls, online meetings, and huge copays to see prison doctors. Right? So when we look at this, right, is that slavery? That is what it is. How in a country about liberty and justice for all, why do we allow that, right? And the answer to that would come down here, right? We see Black people make less than 20% of the population, but somehow make up 40% of the prison population, meaning that, right, that all this horrible stuff about just nationalized slavery predominantly affects the Black community, meaning this system is not broken. It was made by these slave owners writing racism into the Constitution to affect these guys. It's working as intended. And right, for an extreme example of how that affects us today, We look at Florida, where 60% of the population of these prisoners and felons are Black and people of color. And in 2020, a large amount of Americans in a battleground state were barred from voting due to felony disenfranchisement. Now, real quick, I do want to talk about how in 2019, Florida did make it legal for felons to regain their vote, but Republicans added in with the stipulation of if you paid all your fines, which if we go back to the last slide, these prison systems are designed to take away the money and drain their families of their income. How are they going to pay? So how are they going to pay the fines? They're not. Who does this bill help? Nobody. It's just a tokenistic, look at us, we're doing good, right? What does this lead to when almost 10 million potential voters in Florida, who are predominantly people of color, who can't vote in an election, right? Critical race theory, which is the teaching method of teaching and speaking out against racism in the classroom, quite literally what I need you guys to be doing, is banned from the Florida curriculum. This is a very dangerous precedent for education moving forward, right? So I've thrown a lot of information at you. Now it's time for me to explain what to do about this, right? Ignorance has never been an excuse to deny taking action against racism, but now you can no longer use ignorance as an excuse. You know that racism is real. You have to call racism what it is. You have to, if you see something, you have to say something. You need to have these difficult conversations with friends and families, uncomfortable conversations, right? You don't need to convince them, but you do need to say something. So it can be something as simple as just letting the world know which side you're on. And also very important is to listen to people from different ethnic backgrounds. They have a lot of different viewpoints and a lot to teach you about this stuff. Now, a little bit of urgency. If we don't do this, right, in 2024, Republicans are going to run for the presidency again, and they're going to repeatedly tell you America's not a racist country. No, that's a lie. We're not racist. No, we like Black people. You're not racist if we vote for us, right? But this is their rhetoric today, and this will continue to be their rhetoric if you don't stop anything. If you don't stop them, we have to fight to preserve our nation and heritage. This is a battle to save our heritage, history, and greatness for our country, right? This is them talking about people wanting to enact radical social change to stop these institutions of racism, but right, these institutions are our nation and heritage, right? These two statements are very similar to the white supremacist mission statement. So I need you guys to see this and call it for what it is. This is blatant racism. You can look up online, which I encourage you to do, outspoken, proud white supremacists praising these two speakers for how they're presenting the white supremacist talking points. You need to have these conversations. You need to stamp up and say something so we don't have another Donald Trump for presidency. We don't have this madman on TV, okay? And right, what we could do if we do that, if we have these difficult conversations with each other, if we can begin to heal, we can begin to change these systems so they're more free. We could make America great, and we can have a community based around liberty and justice for all, not a select few. I want to close with this quote from Martin Luther King Jr. from Strength of Love, 1963. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that.